Hello, everyone. I already see viewership so high on Facebook land, but welcome back to the second panel of the Right Crowd 2022. This particular Right Crowd is close to my heart because we are going to be showcasing the independent authors of the Storytellers and Legends Convention. So, for those of you that do not know, the Right Crowd is a virtual literary expo that I created in 2020 because during the pandemic, people were at home and safety was a very high priority, and we were all taking precautions. But at the same time, that human connection was a bit lacking. And for authors, one of our favorite things is to meet readers, go to conventions, literary festivals, libraries, and such. And so without that, of course, that human connection was it was lacking. But with the Right Crowd in 2020, it was phenomenal because different authors from all over Texas, all over the United States, and actually all over the world were able to be showcased on panels like this. And then, of course, everyone could tune in from the comfort of their homes. And as of right now, it is a bit chilly and rainy outside, so I'm happy to be in the comfort of my home and joined in fantastic company. And this Right Crowd is special because it is showcasing the independent authors of the Storytellers and Legends Convention. For those that don't know, the Storytellers and Legends Convention is going to be a literary pop culture extravaganza taking place in Mission, Texas, February 20th through the 26th, 2023. And this is an unprecedented event. This convention is going to be combining literary aspects with authors, screenwriters, storytellers, with the fun pop culture-ness of a convention with celebrities, voice actors, video games, and so much more. So stay tuned to the end of the stream because I will be announcing never before seen promo images. I showed them on the last panel, but if you missed it, this will be the first time you'll see some of our featured guests. So it is going to be fantastic. But I am very pleased to showcase the science fiction edition panel, and I am joined by wonderful authors and wonderful friends. And so I see our viewership climbing. I see people have given us hearts. Thank you. And so we already have a comment from Ms. Jackie Smith, who was just on the Right Crowd an hour ago, saying it's going to be amazing. Hi, Jackie. Thank you. Yes, this is going to be an amazing, fantastic event. But while people are tuning in and everything, we can give very brief introductions from our panelists here. So starting with Mr. Scott Kimak, say hello and introduce yourself and the books that you have written.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Scott Kimak, and I write post-apocalyptic fiction. I've written 3 novels and 3 short stories. After the Apocalypse is the first one. What Remains is number 2. I Call Him. Number 3. The Angel of Death is number 4, and The Sword of God is the 5th one. And I also have a short horror story called The Demon Inside Me.
Very nice. Thank you so very much. And Mr. Randal Gritzner, please tell the world hello and introduce a little bit about yourself and your books.
I might not be able to do that because I'm incredibly shy and introverted, but I'll try real hard. I'm a retired science teacher and physics. And over the years, a whole bunch of people told me, put some of these stories on paper and write a book. I mean, I've been a storyteller forever. So my first book was my autobiography, The Aging of an Old Fart. It's available on Amazon.com. That's me. I had so much fun doing that I decided to keep writing. So I wrote a 9-book series on science aimed at middle school and high school kids, trying to get them reading something with content, with a storyline that might be interesting. And then I got a little crazy. Yeah, that happens. And I wrote a 3-book series on romance. Jack and Jill, a love story, was the first one. And what I'm working on right now is I'm currently writing my 9th in a series of science fiction called Found in Space, But Who Are You? It keeps me busy and almost out of trouble.
Very nice. Thank you so very much. And Mr. Gume, please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your written works.
Hey, my name is Gume Laurel III. I write both young adult fiction and poetry. I'm going to be talking about my young adult fiction today. I have a few of my books, 3 of them. Blind Injustice, which is a sci-fi young adult. Captive in Truth, which is also a young adult fiction, and then Hunting for Stars. So I've been writing for a long time, and then also upcoming, which I'm really promoting today, and especially for the upcoming event in February, is Euphorics, which is my upcoming young adult sci-fi novel. It follows the story of 6 individuals actually located in the valley who have the ability to sense and control the emotions of others around them. So that's the story. Buy it.
Yes, super excited for that. And then again, super excited that it is going to be at the convention. So for those of you tuning in and watching, Euphorics coming soon. Super exciting. But I see our viewership climbing. So hello, everyone. And so now that our numbers have risen a bit, this is the part where you all would talk a little bit more about your books and a little bit more in depth, however much you may want. You can give, the blurb. You can talk a little bit about where it came about, if you want to focus on one title or multiple of them. So starting with Mr. Scott Kimak, tell us a little bit more about the titles that you have written in detail.
Okay. Well, my trilogy, okay, actually, I got the idea to write it almost 40 years ago when I was a teenager. But I never, I started writing it, and there were some circumstances that came up, and for some reason I just stopped writing it, and I didn't try writing again until just a couple of years ago. And I decided, I'm going to try to, write that story that I thought about when I was back in middle school. And, I decided to go with it. And it's a post-apocalyptic tale. I guess it's kind of like, you could think of like thrusting John Wick into the future or something like that, because it's basically about this man that is lost in grief over the death of his family, and he seeks nothing but revenge. That's all he's set on in his future. That's all he looks for, and he's really losing himself, and he's really kind of turning this this goal of revenge is turning him darker and darker every day. Until he meets this special little girl, and she's going to have a huge impact on him and start to change things around. But there's the world has been taken over by this evil presence, and so both him and the little girl are really the only ones that can fight to save it and try to stop it. And that's what the trilogy consists of. So it's a fantasy science fiction trilogy. It's tons of action. I'm also a kung fu teacher, so I've done kung fu my whole life. So there's a ton of martial arts in it. So lots of action, lots of sword fighting. So that's a big thrill. And then I ended up writing 2 prequels also to it. So I did those later that actually go into his daughter's life, of the main character, and we're going to lead up to, basically kind of giving a little bit of background. So the main character from the trilogy does play a small part in it, but it's mainly about his daughter and her dog, German Shepherd. Those are more like geared towards youth adult. And, they're also, trying to fight to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. So, it's a lot of fun. There's a little bit of romance in those youth adult novels too. So, it's got a little bit of everything in it. It's been an exciting adventure, and I'm currently working on another youth adult book, which is from one of the characters in the trilogy, who's a really like tough Mexican American girl from Southern Texas, who is trying to pick up the pieces now after this final war for humanity had happened, but now she's going to realize that it may not be over. And that's the one I'm currently writing. So it's a lot of fun. Oh, and I just want to say that the first book in the trilogy is actually free today. So if anyone wants to, it's called I Call Him Him, and it's on Amazon.com.
Fantastic. You heard it here. I Call Him Him on Amazon.com. Go and pick up a copy, which is absolutely fantastic. And we had some comments coming in while you were discussing. Miracle Austin, who was just on a panel, says, love John Wick. And she put some cool emojis in reference to the convention. And then when you mentioned about martial arts, she said, wow, martial arts, woot woot. So Hello, Miracle. And we also have another author tuning in who will be at 3 o'clock on the Children's Book Nook panel. Author Ana Cavasso says, hi, everyone. Hello, Ana. Thank
Hi,
you
Anna.
for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And we'll continue with introductions in a moment, but just also want to mention to anyone watching on Facebook or YouTube, please leave a comment and say hello. If you have any questions, our panelists here will answer. And if you just want to add to the conversation, say hello. Miracle is sending more hearts and lots of love. So hi, Miracle. So yes, we continue on with Mr. Randal Gritzner. If you'd like to talk a little bit more in depth about any of your titles, please tell the world about your written works.
Well, I'm currently working on a series of science fiction books. And in my readings and my 37 years of teaching before I retired, I've noticed that everybody has their own opinion. I mean, different people like to read different stuff. And I love to read science fiction. So that's why I'm writing some science fiction. But one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of science fiction is, in my opinion, too full of warfare. Blood and guts, everybody dies. I think that maybe there should be another type of science fiction out there. So my particular version of science fiction is less blood and guts. There's a little bit of fighting here and there because there are goofballs in every crowd, am I right? But more so into space exploration and multi-species living in harmony. There are disagreements, of course, but we can usually figure it out if we learn how to talk. Now, my first book, Found in Space, and the rest of them are just Found in Space book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. I'm writing book 9 as we speak. Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I'm going to give you the first few pages, basically. The Earth is expanding. The year is 2673, and they need more space for humans to live. And 26 flights have already taken off to land on different planets and expand and colonize those different planets. So my wife and I are on expansion mission number 27. With us, another couple. They are both doctors. My wife and I, medical doctors. My wife and I are both astronauts and pilots. And so we're taking off, and we've launched, and several hours into our flight, we're going to start sleep rotation. I mean, if you're going to be on the ship for who knows days and weeks before you find the right planet, we got to have a rotation of different people. There's only 2 pilots, so my wife and I have to sleep in rotations. So as we kiss goodnight, we froze with our lips still touched. Everyone in the ship froze in place. And we woke up a week later, wondering what the heck just happened. So now we're totally lost because someone has taken over the ship, has flown it around, changing directions about 12 times for a week. And our database is just way out of whack. We cannot figure out where we are. So the adventure starts from there, and search a few planets. We find a planet, we land on a planet, and it gets a little bit crazy.
Very
Maybe
nice.
a little bit of imagination involved.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I like the twist of having it be a little bit more the space exploration aspect with all the cool other little bit of romance sprinkled in there, which is absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for sharing.
I understand a little bit of romance.
Very nice.
Been married for 38 years.
Very nice. That's wonderful. And Mr. Gume, please share a little bit more about your written works. I know you discussed Euphorics a bit in the beginning, but our viewership numbers have been climbing. And we also received a comment from Ana Cavasso saying, wow, Gume, Euphorics must read. So already being anticipated, already excited to see that. But yes, share a little bit more to the world and viewers that are just now tuning in.
Yeah, so Euphorics, it's a young adult sci-fi novel. It follows so it has a rotating point of view from chapter to chapter between 6 of the characters. So one chapter it'll be from one of the characters, the next it'll be a different one. And their ages range from 14 to 21, and they're very different. They're all, each one of the 6 is a totally different background from the others. But what brings them together is that they have the secret ability to the secret ability to sense and control the emotions of others around them. And so the story follows their understanding of how that works in their life and what even the purpose of having that ability is. Meanwhile, because you have euphorics. Euphorics are the type of people who have that ability. Then you also have what are called burners, and burners are people who were euphorics but essentially gave up on hope and became bitter and angry, and began to rely on negative emotions. And so they have the ability to sense the emotions of others as well, but when they control the emotions of others, it's to feel anxiety, depression, anger, all sorts of negative emotions that are not so good. They're not good. And so that burner character is essentially hunting down the 6 main euphoric characters, so to feed their fears of not feeling that their individual identity can be accepted in today's world, be it their skin color, where they were born, who they love, whatever makes them them. He feeds into their fear of that, so to manipulate their abilities. And so the story follows them coming to terms with who they are, accepting who they are, and not just that, but being able to embrace each other in all of their differences, and in that finding unity.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. And I have have the honor and the pleasure of reading a bit of Euphorics and everything that's going to be involved in that, and it's really good, you guys. Like the storytelling is really great. The characters attached to you, and it's just it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm very anticipating the official release, and it's going to be very exciting. And we did receive another comment on YouTube from Miss Rosario Ozuna, one book or novel at a time on YouTube, saying, "Hi, everyone." Hi, Rosario. Thank you for the support, as always. Her YouTube channel, One Book or Novel at a Time, actually features different books, and she'll talk about them for her students, as she is a librarian. So it's wonderful that as a librarian, she's providing another platform for students to learn about books, learn about reading, and thank you for tuning in. And Mr. Mark Esperanza is tuning in on Facebook saying, "Whoa, Euphorics!" Yay. So very exciting here. But again, for anyone on Facebook or YouTube, if you're tuning in, please feel free to leave a comment. Feel free to ask questions. This is an audience-engaged panel. I have my pre-written questions ready down here, but if you all have any questions, please feel free to mention. And my first one for you all will be to ask, where are you tuning in from? Because one of my favorite things about the Right Crowd is that you're able to be in different places, but we still connect to audiences who might not be, in your state or even your country. But the last panel, we had someone tuning in from the Netherlands, which was amazing. So where are you all tuning in from on this Saturday afternoon? Starting with Mr. Scott.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I got distracted. What was that again?
You're fine. I'm asking where you're tuning in from.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, today I'm in San Antonio. I'm from Harlingen, Texas, which is, if you're not familiar, is way down south, about 30 minutes from the Mexican border. But it's my granddaughter's birthday today, so I am up here in San Antonio, Texas, visiting, and we're going to go out in a little bit. We're going to some Santa's type village or something. I'm not really familiar with it, but it sounds like a lot of fun. So that's what we're doing for her birthday today.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And Mr. Randal Gritzner, where are you tuning in from?
Well, I was writing this morning. I'm at home, Sebastian, Texas. Pretty darn close to Harlingen.
Yes.
Deep South Texas is the place to be.
Yes. That's where I am currently, in Harlingen, Texas. And Mr. Gume, where are you tuning in from today?
I'm currently living in San Antonio, Texas. Originally, I was from Westlaco, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. So I was born and raised, left when I was 20, ended up a bunch of different places, and now I'm in San Antonio. So that's where I'm at.
Very nice. So nice to see we've got some South Texas representation as well as just Texas in general representation, but it's always lots of fun. So, my first question to you all is how did your journey as a writer begin? So, either when you first began writing or actually being published and being an author, where did this journey start for you? Starting with Mr. Scott.
Okay, well, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, it's kind of a strange tale, but I was a huge, fantasy science fiction geek when I was a kid. I loved to watch Star Trek. I gobbled up the Edgar Rice Burroughs books, all the Tarzan books, and John Carter of Mars, and all those types. H.G. Wells, so I was really into that, and so when I think I was about 13, and I started writing this story, the one that I actually just recently published, and I think I just wrote maybe the first couple pages. I had like the idea for the trilogy and the skeleton kind of figured out, and I started writing the first couple pages, and I was super excited. And at the time, I was already had started studying martial arts too, and I really admired and looked up to my shifu, my martial arts teacher. And since the book had a lot of martial arts in it, well, I brought over the first few pages and I showed it to him, and I said, "Hey, look I'm writing this story about this character that is going to use kung fu and fight against evil and this and that. Check it out." And he starts looking through it, and he just takes it and he goes, "What's this garbage?" And he throws it aside. And he says, "Go back and do your kung fu training. You don't need to do this." And it just crushed me. And I never tried writing again. I mean, just goes to show how someone can change your life. Someone, you look up to someone, you think that they're a good person. Well, it turned out he wasn't that great. Well, anyway, but I ended up waiting, almost 40 years later. And a couple summers ago, I'm a school teacher, so I have a lot of time off in the summer. I was just sitting there and, playing around on my laptop, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to see if I can remember that story that I tried, writing." And I started typing, and boom, it just kept coming and coming and coming. And I wrote like all day long. And, and so now ever since then, I've just been obsessed, and, I've been putting out books left and right. So yeah, I know it's a long time to wait, but maybe it turned out for the best, because a lot of the experiences in the books are from experiences in my life, and so maybe the story wouldn't have been the same if I would have wrote it when I was a kid.
Thank you for sharing, and I for one am very glad that you picked up the metaphorical pen and paper again and continue to share the stories. I have read the Kim and Kaya Chronicles, and it's like also very good. Science fiction is a genre that I like. When if someone recommends, I'll read. It usually takes me a minute for me to seek it out. But Kim and Kaya Chronicles, I genuinely very much enjoyed. And so I'm glad that you were able to pick up the pen and paper again and continue on, which is fantastic. And yes, Mr. Randal Gritzner, how did your journey as a writer begin?
I never thought of myself as a writer. I'm a retired science/physics teacher. That's what I do. But I've always been a storyteller. I mean, I've been telling stories as far back as I can remember. I was telling stories when I was a kindergarten student. I was telling stories in the classroom. That's one of my big teaching techniques. Well, over the years, several people have said, "Hey, Grits, put some of this on paper and sell a book." And they said that again and again and again. And I finally tried it about 3 years before I retired. And I've now been retired for 2.5 years. I simply, as a teacher, sat down the 1st of June, because that's when I've got some time off, and decided, I'm going to try this. So my first book was my autobiography, The Aging of an Old Fart. He even looks like me. But I had so much fun with it. I mean, now that book isn't really for the kids. It's got some... Have you heard any stories about party animals in the 1970s? Those stories are all about me, and they're true. It's in the book. Well, I finished that, and I had so much fun writing it that I decided, maybe I'll do some more writing. So as a science teacher, what am I going to write about? Obviously science. So where did I hide that thing? I came up with a 9-book series on science, basically aiming at the middle school kids, high-end middle school kids, and more so the high school kids, trying to get them to read. It's got a lot of content in it. It reads somewhat like a science textbook with a storyline, something to hopefully get them interested. I mean, how are you going to teach kids something that they don't want to learn? You got to find a way to pique their interest. And then after 9 books of that took a while, I came up with Jack and Jill, a love story, and a sequel and a threequel. So I have a 3-book series on romance, but I think I really found my spot when I finally got going on Found in Space. But who are you? Now, writing 9 books and more ideas are still coming. So hopefully it's going to be a long, long road. But it's fun. And I just echoed to myself, oh, well.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it's fantastic to see that, the one, your interest is what the writing can take root in, right? Like the past of having, being a science and physics, so then write the science and physics, but then delve into romance and then science fiction with a twist. And it's phenomenal. Thank you so very much for sharing.
And the twists and turns continue.
Yes. Awesome. And Mr. Gume, how did your journey as a writer begin?
I think I've always enjoyed writing in different formats. And then even before, I remember like being a kid and like drawing pictures and being like, this is the story. Like before being able to, actually like write stories. And I remember in 3rd grade, I think that's where it really like solidified in my brain that this is a passion. This is what I love to do. I remember my English teacher that year, Mrs. Hernandez, she would like let me write these stories and like draw little pictures and like with a stapler fold them together and then put them on the shelf in the classroom library for the other kids to read. And I think that was the year that it really was like became solid in my brain, like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I just kept doing it. And like I said, it's taken on different formats because I also really enjoy poetry. And with poetry, there's all kinds of ways you can write poetry. And so doing that, I've really gotten into verse novels lately. That's what I think like maybe that's really like where I'm going to put my focus on for the next few years. For those of you who don't know, verse novels are basically stories like novels, but condensed into every chapter is a poem. So essentially it's like one chapter on a page and you flow through the story that way, the entire story that way. And so I'm really enjoying that kind of medium in writing right now. So I think that's where I'll probably continue. I have a few projects in the near future with that style. So
very nice. Thank you for sharing. That's exciting to know about. And we did receive another comment from Miss Ana Cavasso saying, hey, Mark and Rosario. So saying hi to other viewers, which is cool. And again, for anyone on Facebook or YouTube land, if you would like to leave a comment, say hello, ask a question, please feel free to do so. I see that we're getting lots of hearts and lots of thumbs up. So thank you for that to our viewers. But my next question for you all is, what is your current occupation and how do you balance that with writing? So this could be, do you have a career or retirement or other things going on in your life? And how do you balance, the writing with the other things, whether that be a career, family? How does the writing dynamic play in to the other realms of your life, starting with Mr. Scott?
All right. Well, I teach history in Harlingen at the School of Health Professions, and I absolutely love that. Love my students. Love teaching history. But yeah, it's difficult, when you have a full-time job, sometimes being able to find the time to write. But I try to squeeze it in whenever I can. If it's at night or if it's on the weekends, I think most of the, probably where I get the big chunk of it done is, during the summer when I'm off or during the Christmas holidays or spring break. That's when I probably can get the most done. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to find the time. And then also, the balance with the marketing aspect of it too, because that's really the part that I didn't realize. When you go into writing, you think you'll just be like a field of dreams. You'll just make it and they will come. And no, it's not that easy. You got to try to go out and find people, find followers to come and read your work. So so that takes a lot of time too. So so it's been difficult, trying to balance it, but I'm managing, and little by little I'm getting there. So I'm excited to see where things lead in the future.
Very nice. Thank you. And I'm glad that you mentioned the marketing aspect, because I feel like for people that are aspiring writers, aspiring authors, or people that don't quite know, that's a whole other full-time job that takes up a lot of time to actually. I wrote the book. Now what? To sort of keep up with websites and social media and gain the following and do the event. That's a whole other aspect, and I'm glad you were able to touch upon it. And Mr. Randal, what is your current occupation or otherwise, and how do you balance writing with other things going on in your life?
My main occupation at the moment is grandpa. As a retired teacher, I started writing 3 years before I retired. And so I did have the struggle of finding the time. And similar to Scott, most of the time was on the weekends, spring break, Christmas break, summer break. But now that I'm retired, I can pretty much write when I feel like it. When I have a chance to go play with the grandchildren, that takes precedence. Thursday night, I was at a soccer game for one of my grandchildren. We now have, 3 children, 5 grandchildren, and careful, Scott, this is coming for you too, 4 great grandchildren. So that is obviously my first option. If the grandchildren have something going on, I go. But I do a bunch of writing, and marketing, that's a different field all of itself. The writing is the easy part. So thank God we've got someone around named Katelynn Rentería to help us with the marketing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mr. Gume, how do you balance your occupation and other things going on in your life with the writing aspect?
So I have a full-time job. I work from home, so makes it a little bit easier, but generally I work about 50 hours a week, Monday through Friday, and so it's pretty exhausting. But a lot of the time I just choose to. I think it's interesting because, like, I know a few years ago I was always just like, oh my gosh, it's impossible for me to figure out a schedule. And then when the pandemic happened, I started working a lot more and being a lot less social because everything was closed down for like a year. And then I think in that time I found a better balance where I work, the job that I have to, so I can pay my bills. And then afterwards in the evenings, especially weekends, that's when I dedicate a lot of my time to writing. And I think during the marketing and all of that kind of goes in the mix of all of it. I don't really have I'm not as good with that as scheduling. Like, okay, this is like having a week's worth of promos to set out and like making the calendar for all of that. I kind of just do it as I do it. And so it's just like I think I have like the writing time is the evenings and weekends. Work is during the day into the evening, and then marketing sprinkled throughout, because it's especially like when you do it on Instagram and like TikTok and all the other outlets, you have to know what's happening on those platforms, and it changes like every 2 days. So also being stuck on my phone a lot of the time helps. So yeah.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, TikTok and Instagram are a whole other thing. I have like my personal ones where I'm just like, oh, I consume other content, and then trying to like learn how the algorithms work are that's a whole other full-time position. But we had Miracle Austin chime in on Facebook saying that she's enjoying the panel. Thank you, Miracle. And again, for anyone on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to say hello, ask a question. My next question for our panelists here pertains to the Storytellers and Legends Convention. So the Storytellers and Legends Convention is the Rio Grande Valley's first literary pop culture event. The closest thing you can get to something of this size is going to be probably Austin, but we are doing something unprecedented where, you know, this is the literature aspect where we have authors, screenwriters, storytellers, and we're combining it with the fun pop culture experience of a Comic-Con to have celebrities and voice actors and just that whole con experience. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But my question to you all is, have you ever been to a Comic-Con before? And if you have, share some stories. If you haven't, if you're excited for it. And have you ever really seen an event like this one? Like, is there one that rings a bell, or like, no, this is the first ever? Just sort of Comic-Con experience. Have you been to a Comic-Con, and have you ever seen an event like this one? Starting with Mr. Scott.
No, I've never been to a Comic-Con. I'm really excited, you know, about seeing this. I mean, I've been to a couple of Star Trek conventions. I don't know.
Counts. That counts.
But a Comic-Con, no, I haven't been to that. So yeah, I'm really excited. You know, and some of the big names are going to be there. R.L. Stine and the creator of the Tarzan movies and stuff. You know, I said I'm a big Tarzan fan, so yeah, I'm really excited about seeing this. And you know, just curious to see how the whole thing is going to be, how it's going to go. I mean, I've done some book signings before at Barnes and Noble. And some small, you know, bookstores, but I've never done anything of this, you know, size, you know, so this is definitely something new, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think it's really gonna be exciting.
Thank you. And yes, I'm incredibly excited too. The Comic-Con experience is a whole other experience in and of itself, and it's a lot of fun. And Star Trek conventions count because it's a pop culture convention. It's lots of fun. But this one in particular is just, oh, the size of it is going to be fantastic. And so, Mr. Randall, have you ever been to a Comic-Con before, or have you ever seen an event like this before?
I've been to 2 Comic-Cons. They were in San Antonio. Our daughter was going to Art Institute San Antonio, and she went there for 6 years. She now has 2 bachelor's degrees. And as an artist, she was really into going to Comic-Con. Well, Mom and Pa like to go visit our daughter in San Antonio, so we did that a couple of times, and it was a lot of fun. I couldn't believe the thousands and thousands and thousands of people condensed into one space for a Comic-Con. But after seeing it, it made more sense. I guess as a man of science, I was never so much into art. And seeing other people that are really, really into it gave me a new appreciation. And that kind of helped get me towards my writing days also. That was prior to when I first started writing. So it helped get me to where I am.
I love that you know, seeing because that's an experience in and of itself, going to a Comic-Con and seeing the lines of people, how everyone dresses up and they go all out and they get so excited for it. And that's wonderful that was able to sort of, you know, open eyes to like, wow, like look at the unity, the community, and then of course segueing to art. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And Mr. Gume, have you ever been to a Comic-Con before, or have you ever seen anything like the Storytellers and Legends Convention before?
So I went to my first Comic-Con actually at the start of this year. It's called Haven Con. It's a queer Comic-Con. So that was like a really fun experience. I was there as like one of the, like as a person being presented, like, you know, like panels and stuff. And so that was really fun being in an environment like that, because I had never been to a Comic-Con before. And then so seeing like how it was shared just a second ago, people just kind of, you know, there people with like-minded people and without the worry of people who don't maybe like see that way or like agree with like, oh, that's like weird, you're super into anime, that's super weird, like with that element removed, and just being able to enjoy what people enjoy, that was really refreshing. And then seeing it from a queer perspective, that was like a whole other, you know, angle that was really enjoyable to see. I think with this though, with the Storytellers one, it's very different than any other event that I've seen. With the book industry, it's a very like interesting industry whenever you have events, because there's always there's always events happening. And the thing is, a lot of the time, independently published authors or self-published authors don't always have the same platform that traditionally published authors have. And so like there's a lot of events that won't take you if you were published by an independent publisher or if you have self-published. So this is really an awesome opportunity because it's open to people who don't always have that platform or don't always have the opportunity. So it's going to be really exciting to see that, and then mixed with other people, that were mentioned a second ago, like other big names as well. So I think it's going to be really fun. It's the first thing I've seen of the sort, so I'm excited for it.
Thank you so much. And I love that part of the Comic-Con experience. Like you were mentioning, like the I don't want to use the word judgment, but like some people don't really like to talk about some of their interests because there might be, that, oh, you're into that, like, oh, I don't like that. But at a Comic-Con, that does not exist. Like, it doesn't matter if it's an anime fest or just a Comic-Con in general, or, superhero or whatever it may be. There's just so much like the love, and you recognize characters, and even if you have no clue who the cosplay is, you're like, you look amazing. And it's just so the love is there and it's present. And we have a lot of comments coming in pertaining to that. Miracle Austin was mentioning that Comic-Cons rock, and she said, so true, Gume. And Jackie said, Jackie Smith, who is an author on the panel previously, says, you never know true power until you're a Comic-Con vendor. There are always lines of people waiting to get in, and you get to walk right past them. So you all are going to get to experience that as well, and it is quite fun. When you're going as a fan, the lines are very long. It's just a part of the experience. But then as the vendor, as the guest, you just, it feels great. Jackie said that experience gives her chills. But yes, this is definitely unprecedented in the fact that just the size of it, for the location, for the people of the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas to be given the opportunity to learn from screenwriters, composers, illustrators, musicians is going to be fantastic. And then again, I'm very pleased for the independent authors, and especially for the right crowd. That's the whole segue here, that it's the independent authors of the Storytellers and Legends Convention, where instead of Artist Alley, it's Author Alley. We're having the whole spotlight for all of us to be able to showcase our stories, for the students to meet us, the fans to meet us, because even though we may have other jobs, other occupations, other parts, this is still very much a passion project for us. And so being able to share that with the readers and audience is going to be absolutely phenomenal. And so again, on Facebook or YouTube, if you have any questions or anything else you'd like to share, please comment and chime in. And my next question for you all would be, what do you see for your future pertaining to writing or otherwise? So do you have anything in the works? I know, Gume, you mentioned the free verse novels. Randall, you're already at book 2,775. And so what is, continuing on in the future? What can we see from you all as we progress, starting with Mr. Scott?
Well, I have a lot of ideas for future stories. Some of the other characters that were, side characters in my books. Like I said, the next one coming is the young girl from Southern Texas named Katie. But I also have a few other characters that I want to write stories about them also. So I have, several up and coming books I'm hoping to be able to get to just when I can find the time. That's the hard part. But yeah, I'm really excited into diving into their characters and expanding them more. I've also thought of doing a few other ideas. I actually, my grandfather, who he's been passed away for quite some time now, but there's quite some stories about him that I've heard through the family through the years, and I'm almost considering doing a kind of crime mafia type story that I'm looking at. So I might do that one day too. That's a possibility, but I don't know, we'll see where things go.
That's awesome. I'm gonna keep an eye out for that one. That sounds exciting. That's super cool. Thank you for sharing. And Mr. Randal Gritzner, what can we see from you starting at this point off into the future? More continuation of the series, or maybe other ideas brewing around? What can we expect from you as time progresses?
I know that we are science fiction authors, but seeing into the future is still a little fuzzy. Now, when I first started writing, I started with one book. And then I had so much fun, I decided let's do a couple more. And when I finished my 8th book, I decided, that's enough. I'm just kind of sort of out of ideas. New idea hit me.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like I have said, I think this might be my last book many times. I am currently writing my 22nd book. Not quite the number that you quoted earlier, but I just don't know if the ideas are going to stop anytime soon. So I'm just going to write as it feels good.
Mhm.
And I think they've said before, if it feels good, do it. This isn't a commercial. Anyway, I really don't know where the future is going to go, but I'm going to have a good ride in the process. It's going to be fun.
I love that. And 22 is a very, very impressive number. That's like goals and aspirations. And so thank you for sharing, and absolutely looking forward to what's on the horizon. So, Mr. Gume, what can we see from you in the future? You mentioned a little bit previously, but from writing style or books, what can we see from here on out?
As far as books, Euphorics, that releases in February, the month of the event, and then pre-sales drop in January. So I'll be posting all about that as soon as pre-sales for the book. I also have a poetry book that'll be with Mouthfeel Press. That'll be in the following year, February the following year. And I do have some exciting stuff in the works. I just can't talk about it right now. But keep an eye out because I'm like super stoked about a couple projects that are coming up in the next like 3 years. So for now, Euphorics. Euphorics with Esperanza Publishing, which is a new indie publisher down in the Valley.
Awesome. We love the RGB representation and super excited for all the different stuff going on. And at the end of this panel, I will be plugging all of your social media so that way the audience where to go and look and find all of this cool information. But again, to everyone on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to drop a comment. We've still got some time left on the panel. So this next question is one that I particularly like, where in your career as a writer, in your career as an author, do you have any interesting or close to your heart stories? Maybe when you met with a reader, maybe it was a moment you were writing and, all the pieces sort of clicked. Maybe it was the first time you held a book and saw your name. Do you have any interesting or close to your heart stories, starting with Mr. Scott?
Well, this is kind of funny. Sometimes when I write, I feel like I become the characters. I'll lock myself in the room and just get lost in that other world, as I start writing. And one time my wife walked into the room, and there I am, all teary-eyed and crying and stuff. And she's like, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is just a really sad part, And she's like, "Yeah, but you're writing it. You already know what's going to happen. Why are you crying?" But it's weird, like, and it's just funny, you get so, as a writer, sometimes get so lost in the characters that, you feel like you're, part of what they're going through and part of the trials that they're facing and the pain and the sadness, and it's really an amazing experience. It's something that, before I start writing, I just never realized, but it's really a way, I guess, to sometimes get with your feelings and so forth and dive into these other worlds. And so yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's a fun thing to let yourself go, and just kind of disappear into your own little space sometimes.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think that that's a wonderful thing of being surrounded by other writers and other artists and people that, create in various mediums, because that immersion is just one of the most magical feelings where, sometimes we cry when we get too into it, but, it is a wonderful experience to be so immersed. And then you can only hope that, the reader will feel that same connection. And it definitely comes through. It definitely happens where when you're reading something, you can tell when the author truly, delved in and their heart was in it, their soul was in it. And it's just fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And Mr. Randal, do you have any close to your heart or interesting stories over your career as a writer/author?
When I was a teacher, I loved the relationships that could be formed, not just with the students, but also with the other teachers. And then I started writing my first book, my autobiography. And one of the other teachers who read my autobiography made a comment one day that kind of blew my mind. He says, "Grits, you didn't just bumble through life, did you? You really lived your life." Some of the adventures, real life adventures, part of my story, blew his mind. And I thought that was rather interesting that I could blow his mind with my life. And then when I got into writing some science fiction, some teachers started to read some of my first science fiction books. And I was told by a couple that your imagination is out there. That's pretty much says it. Your imagination is way out there.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. And Mr. Gume, do you have any interesting or close to your heart stories over your career as a writer and an author?
I definitely have a lot, and over the last decade, I think though in recent years, it's really something that's really been special to me is finding community amongst other writers, because I think writing is such a solid an act in solitude. Like you write alone, you experience it's all in your head, and so there's a level of just loneliness I think that comes with it, with that solitude. But I think in recent years, finding a lot of other writers who are very much in like the same wavelength, writing the same wavelength that I'm writing, and just finding others that I can get feedback from, that I can go back and forth with as I'm writing something, or if I write something, send it to a friend, be like, hey, what do you think? And then they can not just that, oh my God, yeah, it's amazing. Like I can hear like, oh no, that sucks. Or like, oh, that needs to change. And it's like, because that's important. And so because that's when you have actual people like that are your friends, and not just people that are going to be like nice to you. And so I think for me, that's been a really helpful thing in the last, I want to say like the last 3 years or so, probably around right before the pandemic. I think that kind of brought a lot of people together online in like different communities where, there's a lot of other queer Chicanos or queer Latinx writers kind of like floating around, and then everybody just kind of like finding each other over different platforms and figuring, and then being able to, in that, become better at the craft.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And especially that community is just wonderful. Like, again, some of the connections that I've been able to create with other writers and other authors, Gumet, you're in San Antonio, and I genuinely always such a pleasure to see you and value your opinion and your friendship and the support. And it's fantastic that you can still find each other, and especially that common line, the common love. I'll tie it back to the Comic-Con, where these are strangers, you don't know who they are, but you see them dressed up as something that you love, and you're like, wow, and the connection is instant. And it's writing is a special part of that, where not only do we read the stories and we get connected to the characters, but then the connection with the author is there as well, that I feel like people might not always refer back to, where you're connecting with the characters, but there's also a person behind the story who made that happen. And Scott Kimak is back. Hello.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yes, you're just in time for the next question. So again, to everyone on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. Feel free to comment and ask questions. We're nearing the end of our panel, but my final question to you all is again pertaining to the Storytellers and Legends Convention, where, this is going to be absolutely epic. And I'll share some promo images before we say goodbye. But what are you most looking forward to about the event? Either some of the guests, engaging with readers, experiencing a Comic-Con at this level. What are you excited for the Storytellers and Legends Convention, starting with Mr. Gume?
Oh, now I'm first.
Yes.
The lineup changed. I'm super excited to see a lot of people, because like the lineup, especially with the indie and authors, it's just like a bunch of friends. Like it's going to be like a family reunion. The South Texas Book Festival a couple months ago in McAllen, it was so many people, so many of us that know each other, hadn't seen each other in years, kind of like all suddenly in the same building together. And I think that that's what the Storytellers Convention is going to be like. It's a lot of us that have known each other for so long, or maybe known each other through social media. Now suddenly, like, we're all together for a lot of hours consecutively. And so I'm really excited for that. And then I'm also excited to, because that'll be the first big event that I'll have after launching Euphorics. So I'm super excited to have that as my space to be able to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Mr. Scott, what are you most excited for or looking forward to in anticipation for the Storytellers and Legends Convention?
Well, like I said earlier, this is all brand new to me, so I'm just excited to see the whole experience. How big it is. How many people are going to be there. Of course, meeting some of the other authors there. Meeting the readers, getting to to talk about my books. I mean, it's just it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. I just can't wait. I wish it was coming sooner.
Yes. Oh, I'm torn because half of me is like, let it be February already, but the other half is like, there's still so much to do. So it's dual-ended. But yes, Mr. Randal Gritzner, what are you most looking forward to about the convention prior to February?
Marketing is not my thing. I've been able to become somewhat of a writer, but why write if nobody's going to read my books? So getting out there and making contacts with other authors, with people who might want to read my books. My heart goes out to the high school and middle school kids. And if my heart's going to go out to them, that doesn't mean a lot unless I can make contact and get my book in their hands. So most of my writing is for the middle school and high school kids, but it turns into something that their parents and their grandparents can enjoy reading as well. So it's kind of finding a way to get into their lives and get my book in their hands and get them thinking about the things that I'm thinking and saying, wow, it's a new way of looking at that. Or, hey, I love the way you said that. I've been trying to find a way to word it. I mean, there's just a lot of emotions that have not really come through yet.
I love that. Thank you so very much for sharing. And we had a couple comments come in when Gume was talking about family. Mark Esperanza says, #family reunion with some books and a heart. So yes, it definitely does feel like that, especially, like you mentioned, it's been quite a few years with the pandemic that we've all been able to see each other. And so this is going to be just a big, excited for the readers, excited for the guests, but then also just see everyone again and celebrate. And it's going to be fun. Author Jackie Smith says, I can't wait to meet y'all for real. Because, internet and social media is one thing, but excited for you to come down, Jackie, so that way we can experience this. And Miracle Austin says, looking forward to meeting you both, Scott and Randall, and see Gume again. So yay, the connections are there. It's going to be fantastic. And so we are about to hit our 1 hour mark. And so for everyone on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your comments. It's been a fantastic panel. And then again, I hold you all in very high regard. Your works are fantastic. It was so just a pleasure to host you all here and give you all the chance to, talk about yourselves ahead of the convention. And again, the convention is going to be something that is unprecedented and so very excited to share. So for those of you just tuning in, I see our numbers climbing again as we reach the end. But for those of you hopping in, the Storytellers and Legends Convention is going to be happening in Mission, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, February 20th through the 26th, 2023. And I am very pleased. I shared them on the previous panel, but it still feels brand new every time we do it. So I have some never before seen promo images, including this one here, where this is the Rio Grande Valley's first literary pop culture experience happening in Mission, Texas. We will have authors, we will have screenwriters, musicians, illustrators, celebrities, voice actors, video games, and more. And I am incredibly excited to share this particular promo image because our featured guest lineup includes R.L. Stein, the author of the Goosebumps series, Dav Pilkey for Captain Underpants and Dogman, Max Bralier for The Last Kids on Earth, Alejandro Ochoa from Mexico with Esquinkles, and the Chiodo brothers, who created Killer Clowns from Outer Space, John Massari, who composed the music for the Killer Clowns from Outer Space franchise, and Tab Murphy, who has written movies like Disney movies like Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, Brother Bear, Atlantis. So be sure to be there, happening in February. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Author Ana Cavasso says, great panel. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Ana. Miracle Austin says, Katelynn, you rock. Thank you, Miracle. You rock right back. When we were announcing Tab Murphy, and then Jackie Smith said, ah! So lots of excitement. And Patricia Rentería commented and said, Comic-Cons bring people together who share a passion. You guys rock. South Texas is in for an awesome event in February. Absolutely. Thank you so very much. So, yes, before we sign off, I would like to give one last nod to where we can find you after this. So, starting with Mr. Gume, where can we find your books? Where can we find your social media? After we say goodbye and people still want to know all about Euphorics and all the great stuff, where can we find you?
So my books can be found anywhere books are sold, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You can find me on Instagram at tx.author, and my website, GumeLaurel.com.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Scott Kimak, where can we find you after this?
All right, my books are on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. And as far as my social media, it's pretty simple. It's just my name, Scott Kimak. You can find it TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Thank you. And Mr. Randal Gritzner, where can we find you in your books after this?
My books are all on Amazon.com. Most of them are through the website that's on the screen right now, but my autobiography is not on that website, but it is on Amazon.com. It was through a different publisher, and that will be changed soon, so they'll all be on the website.
Fantastic. So thank you all again so very much. And again, if to keep up with everything happening at the Storytellers and Legends Convention, you can go to Facebook, and the Storytellers and Legends Convention Facebook page is down there. That's our one-stop shop for all the featured guest announcements, all the independent author guest announcements. Independent authors have some videos of them introducing themselves, so that way you can still get to know us a little bit more prior to the convention. And the URL for that is facebook.com/StorytellersLegendsCon. But yes, this convention is definitely a passion project created by book geeks for book geeks. So there's a little special sprinkling of love, that goes into this, because we truly, this is coming from a place where we love writing, we love reading, we want to give that platform, and especially independent authors to have that section to showcase yourselves, meet the readers, meet the writers. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But thank you to my amazing panelists today, Mr. Gume Laurel, Scott Kimak, and Randal Lee Gritzner. It has been a pleasure. Very much looking forward to seeing you all in February. And yes, just thank you again for joining. It's always so very much fun.
Well, thank you,
Almost as much.
Yes. And
Go
thank
ahead,
you
Scott.
to everyone on Facebook for tuning in. I see some final hearts before we leave. So thank you guys so very much. But yes, we have another panel at 3 p.m. for Children's Book Nook featuring children's book authors. So tune into that. And there is another panel at 10, 12, and 3 o'clock tomorrow. So this is a weekend-long event. And if you're just tuning in now and maybe you missed the prior to the stream, go to Katelynn, author KatelynRentería.com/2022 The Right Crowd. All of these panels are going to be on demand, so you can continue to watch and continue to learn and continue to share and stream, which is lots of fun. So see you all very soon. Bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye-bye.